The following program is made possible by the friends and partners of GodQuest Ministries.
From the CTN studio in Pensacola, Florida, this is Creation Today, where we believe the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate in every detail. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Hoven.
And I'm Paul Taylor, and on today's show we'll be answering questions on the Bible, and also we'll be exposing a master illusionist's greatest trick, showing at a church near you.
Yeah, our guest today is C.T1-13 of ProofThatGodExists.org. And on the show, you plan on challenging this illusionist to a debate.
That's right.
Oh, can't wait to check that out right after this. Joining us for another episode of Creation Today is C.T1-13 from ProofThatGodExists.org, a native of Canada. And we're pleased to have you in the studio. Thanks for coming in.
Glad to be here.
Of course, we had Si on the program a little while ago.
That's right, a couple weeks ago.
Except this time he's actually here.
It's
he's
the real
flesh,
deal.
Instead of on a little screen.
Yeah, I think you look better on the little screen personally. But
thanks a lot.
No, Si's been a great friend of the ministry. Si and myself did a CD, an audio CD that we put together recently called Think. And it's what everyone knows about God. And if you haven't checked that out, I'd encourage you to go to, where could they get this at? Is there any stores that they could?
How about creationstore.org?
Creationstore.org
Yes.
would be a great place to get that right there. So if you want to get Think, what everyone knows about God, I'd encourage you to check that out. That'd be great. Also, of course, man, this is turning into a hot item. The Unbelievable Debate Series. If you have not heard this, it's a debate series of 3 debates that Si did with Paul Baird of the UK, and it started a little over a year ago and did a series of 3 debates. Wow. You like this one too, don't you?
Yeah, they explain the apologetic quite well, and they show what happens when an atheist encounters a biblical apologetic, the biblical way to argue for God's existence, to defend your faith.
It really, I mean, I don't mean to be rude or cruel to Paul Baird, but wow, he really gets, the floor is mopped with him, no doubt about it. It's really bad.
One thing I stress too is that we have to keep in mind, except for the grace of God, that we're in his shoes. So we have to pray for Paul and pray for people who defend their faith in such a manner. And
he did give us permission, right? You remember that? He gave us permission to pray for him. So Paul Baird?
He did, yeah. On the early debate, he'd said no, and then on the actual televised debate, he'd changed his mind.
Yeah. So if you end up getting this, it'll come with 3 CDs along with the DVD of the debate that we did right here on the show. That I just found absolutely fascinating is he would not defend his own worldview. He kept jumping around to other worldviews. I found that interesting. Then to top that off, you can go to creationtoday.org and you'll find a conversation that Si and myself kind of got plopped into. Got invited into, but they recorded the conversation, and it really is a follow-up. It's really round 4 of this 3-part debate called Unbelievable, and you can check that out on creationtoday.org or at your website. You've got it posted there, right?
ProofThatGodExists.org. Just navigate to the multimedia page, and you can find that exchange.
Man, I'm telling you, it really is good stuff. Okay, so a couple different things that are available there. We said at the introduction that you wanted to challenge this illusionist to a debate. You said this is his greatest trick, and you want to expose what that trick is on this show.
That's right. Now, I want to ask you a question, Eric. If you professed atheism, do you think it would be possible for you to get into churches and tell people that there is no God?
Is there a way for me to ask a pastor to let a pastor in? What do you think, Paul?
Well, it sounds very unlikely, doesn't it?
I don't think that would happen.
You would have thought that churches would be wanting people to believe that there is a God.
I can understand maybe in certain circumstances where they were putting that down and they were really exposing the truth, like what we're going to do here. But just somebody to come in and preach there is no God? No, I can't imagine that.
Now, there's a fellow who actually, Christians and churches ask permission to post his video in their churches. And he's telling people that there is no God. Now, you'd think that would be a great trick, wouldn't you?
That'd be a really good trick.
Well, Eric, I give you Penn, Jillette.
That's exactly what he's done. Penn Jillette, if you don't know, was approached by a believer and handed him a Bible after one of his shows. And Penn made a video about this conversation that he had and said he was really deeply touched by it. And it really moved him.
Yes.
But in the video, he professes his atheism and says, I know there is no God.
That's right, and Christians are being duped. I think this is his greatest trick. Because first of all, what he's saying is that there is no God, and of course we've discussed on the show previously that everybody knows that God exists.
That's exactly right.
And in other respect too, I think it's kind of patronizing. Because can you imagine somebody saying, well, if you really believe in Santa Claus, you should be putting milk and cookies out for him. Or if you really believe in the tooth fairy, you should be putting your teeth under the pillow. And that's basically
he's relating
what he's
Christianity to that, isn't he?
That's right, and not only that, he's getting this message into churches. And I watched a video later on where he's happy about a woman who saw this video in a church, went and looked at some of his material and started doubting the existence of God now. And I think that is his trick, that he's telling people that this is a good thing that Christians are doing so that they love his message, they put it in their churches, and people actually pursue what he's saying, and they start to doubt God.
There is a logical fallacy, isn't there, called bait and switch, which is in a sense what he's doing, because to some people, he would appear to be giving a nice, honest, open argument. But what you're saying is that there is something deeper behind that people really should spot if they just stop and think. And the trouble is, so often, unfortunately, Christians do not always stop and think. I mean, why would a church want to use this video? I think it's probably because there's a place in the video clip where he's talking about the attitude of a Christian who doesn't want to evangelize, or as he keeps putting it, proselytizing. I think that's what Christians perhaps are picking up on. Did you want to comment on that bit? That he's saying, if a Christian believes that there's a God, believes that there's a heaven and a hell, and that an atheist is going to hell, then if they don't actually share their faith, then they must really hate that person. Yeah, and I think that is perhaps the bit that the churches are picking up on. So
that's right.
Why is that not okay for the churches to talk
Well,
on?
that's the bait. Yes. And he looks like a very reasonable, kind man. Yeah. And actually, I've seen some of his stuff, and apart from the vulgarity and apart from the blasphemy, I think that I could get along with Penn quite well. But I've seen some of his stuff, and what he does, he gets this into the churches, makes it look like he's a friendly fellow, but then he slides in there is no God. He makes a definitive statement. So people start to like him, people start to cozy up to what he's saying, and then he throws in this, there is no God, and I think that he wants to seed doubt into them.
Yes.
Now you brought a clip about that, right?
Right.
Okay, so you've got a clip, and this is Penn saying there is no God, and this is something that's being shown in churches.
That's right.
All right.
Have a look at that.
Let's take a look at that clip.
Now, I know there's no God, and one polite person living his life right doesn't change that.
So here in churches, Penn is saying, I know that there is no God.
Right.
Is that true?
Absolutely not. We know from Romans 1 that everybody knows that God exists. Now keep in mind, Penn is an illusionist, so this is his biggest trick.
It's incredible, really, that a church would want to do that and want to have this there, but they're doing it because they haven't really thought through the issues, and that's the sort of thing that you're trying to challenge them on, isn't it?
Exactly. I want to expose this.
And he does this on multiple occasions with lots of videos saying, look, I appreciate what you're doing, and you should be doing it, and relating it to, it's just the marketplace of ideas. This is what happens out there in the marketplace. Everybody presents their ideas. But he's assuming, of course, that his is right, and that ours is wrong.
Right.
And he's preaching that in the church.
Exactly.
All right, well, I know you got a challenge for Penn. We'll take you and let you present that challenge to him right after this.
Everyone's asking questions about our economic crisis, and God gave us the answers. Godonomics, the new buzzword and resource, boldly proclaims, yes, God Almighty does have something to say about the almighty dollar. Mike Huckabee called Godonomics brilliant. This Truth Project type curriculum includes 6 30-minute lessons on DVD, iPad app, or group study guides. Offering solutions in a fun, fact-filled journey, Godonomics teaches a biblical worldview on liberty, generosity, and free market capitalism. Visit Godonomics.com today.
Welcome back. You're watching Creation Today with me, Paul Taylor, and Eric Hovend, and our special guest for today, Cy ten Bruggen-Kate. Now, we were looking just before the break at the greatest illusionary trick of the master illusionist Penn Jillette, and how he is getting into churches a video that actually states there is no God. And I know that we've got some things to say about that, and Cy, you're going to be particularly wanting to say something about that. And you had something, Eric.
Yeah, I know, Cy, you wanted to challenge Penn specifically here. I have really enjoyed the debates that you've done, the unbelievable debate you did with Paul Baird, and so if Penn is watching this, I'd encourage him to check that out, because you can actually expose the trick, pull the mask off, so to speak, from what he is saying he believes to what he really believes.
And I'd encourage people who are watching this to actually tweet Penn, to send this to Penn, because I'd really like to talk to him and offer this challenge to him. Now, this isn't the first time that that Penn has been challenged to a debate, and he's declined them in the past. And I actually look at some of these challenges, and I agree with Penn, because a lot of times that these are presented as an anonymous Christian on a YouTube thing, and it wants to be a written debate. Well, Penn, I'm just an average guy. I don't have a PhD. I don't know all of these evidences, and I would like to debate you. And I'd be happy to fly to Vegas and have a debate where we discuss the existence of God. My website is proofthatgodexists.org. You've just written a book called God No. We have polar opposite views. And it doesn't have to be a formal debate, but I would like to just get on a stage with you in front of an audience where we can express our views. And I'd love to be able to meet you. And you know what, Penn? Even if we just go for lunch and not have a debate, I'd like to do that. But I think it would be a great idea if the two of us got together and debated these issues. You can look at my website. You can look at my qualifications. I am just a dude with a website, and you have no reason to be intimidated by what I say, and I don't have any reason to be intimidated by what you say. Let's just get together and debate this issue.
Wow, so an open debate there. It's a Penn Jillette. Penn, I'd encourage you to take him up on that. I want to come. I want to come check that out. Penn, I'd love to meet you, and I'd love to come to your show, man. You guys do some really neat stuff, and then you do some stuff, obviously, that wouldn't want to take my wife or family
Yeah, I
to.
think I'd be walking out of that show, unfortunately.
Hey, I'll watch all the magic tricks and learn, or illusions, and learn how to do those, because I loved that stuff growing up. I've always been involved in that. Okay, so why is this so important, and why don't churches see exactly what's going on here? What is it that they're getting deceived by? How are they so easily deceived?
Well, I think that they're relieved in having somebody from the other side, an atheist, actually tell Christians what they should be doing. And they're so excited by this message that they put it out there, not realizing the undertone in that message is that there is no God. So like I say, he's really mocking us when he does this. He's complimenting us, and then he's trying to take our feet out from under us by saying, yes, you should be doing this, but there really is no God. And what I want to stress is that everybody knows that God exists, and that's the kind of thing that I want to talk about him in this debate, because he's saying that everybody's an atheist. We've seen other videos where he said stuff just like that.
Right.
Yes.
So we have polar opposite views, and surely two average guys can get together in front of an audience and discuss these issues, and people can actually see which worldview has a foundation.
What's his motivation when he says that Christians should proselytize? What does he think then, what the message is he putting across that their motivation should be in order to proselytize?
Well, I think that he doesn't mind getting that amount of truth out there, because it's absolutely true that Christians should be proselytizing.
Yes.
And he's actually proselytizing for atheism,
yes,
which is inconsistent with atheism.
Right, that's what I keep wondering is, if atheism is true, and this world does not matter, and our thoughts are just a bunch of random chemicals that just, do whatever they do, and that's what produces our thoughts, then ideas don't matter. This whole where did we come from, it doesn't matter. You're going to die, and that's the end. I mean, if everything really came from a Big Bang, if everything really evolved and we're just evolved primordial soup, then nothing you do or say will ever matter at all. You're not gonna do some great thing with your thoughts or your ideas, and why change somebody who's religious to try to convert them to atheism? If that's something that they think helps them and that's the way their brain is fizzing, then just let their brain fizz that way.
Yes, well, of course, that's not the attitude of the new atheists, we can call them that. It was the attitude of the atheists in the past, but the new atheists are a whole breed of what we might call fundamentalist atheists in a sense, and that do believe in proselytizing. So Dawkins says, well, you can believe in what you like, but what actually matters is the truth. And of course, as far as he's concerned, the truth is that there is no God. But in one sense, we're then saying that Penn Jillette is within that new atheism because he's proselytizing for atheism, but he's doing it in a manner that is very, very different from the likes of Hitchens and Dawkins and so on. Would that be a fair?
Absolutely. He's cozying up to the Christians to try and get his message across. And, the thing is, these new atheists, they don't mind spreading their message. But what they do seem to mind is debating people on this. And, I can understand why people wouldn't want to debate a PhD in philosophy or in logic or something like that. But I'm just an average guy. So I don't see any reason why Penn wouldn't want to take up this challenge and get together and actually talk about these issues.
Yeah. I'll pay for the tickets. Let's
that's fantastic. You heard that.
We will get the tickets to head out there. Now, I know there was another challenge recently put out from a guy on YouTube saying, hey, Christians, I want to understand, I'm really trying to just understand what objective morality is. You say objective morality comes from God. Here's my problem with that. Let me know what you think. And so I want to get into that. I want to show a little bit of his video on what he's trying to do and really expose for those of you out there what's really going on. Do they really believe in an objective morality? And do we believe in an objective morality? What is it that we really believe? And so if it's all right, after this next break, I'd like to do that. Would that be okay?
That sounds good. I think that's a thing that a lot of the new atheists are starting to do. I see it creeping more and more into what they're saying, is that they're actually trying to trick Christians into believing that they don't actually believe in absolute morality. And they say, can you please give us some evidence for this absolute morality? When in fact, they do know that absolute morals exist. So I found that trend to be the case, that they're saying things that they don't believe in order to try and convince Christians to enter the debate, when we're saying that you cannot even debate without starting with God.
Wow. Well, after this break, we will take a look at a little clip from that and expose the truth of objective morality. Be right back.
Beginnings is a creation experience for small groups, churches, and individuals from all walks of life. Creation speaker Eric Hovind explores the age-old questions of life, the evidence for a young earth, and how dinosaurs fit in with the Bible. The included guide provides an introduction to each lesson, creative challenges, great discussion questions, and practical ways to apply each lesson to everyday life. To order this DVD, go to www.creationstore.org.
Welcome back to Creation Today. We're talking with Seiton Bruggencate and Paul, I almost called you Paul Baird, and Paul Taylor about this whole idea of the greatest illusion ever told with Penn Jillette. Wanted to get into a video that I found interesting as somebody was questioning objective morality. Theists say there is an objective morality, there's an objective law, and that comes from God. He is saying in this video, isn't that just a larger scheme, subjective morality to whatever God wants? So let's talk about this. Also, Sai, you did a program recently with an atheist, Justin Schieber.
That's right, not Bieber.
Not Justin Bieber, no. Justin Schieber, and your whole thing on this video is a great dialogue, pretty deep though into the intellectual level. Tell us about that and where people can watch that, or you wanted to mention something.
Well, they can also watch that on my website. It's the multimedia page, and it's my exchange with Justin Schieber. Now, the interesting thing about my exchange with Justin is that he has the same problem that the fellow from this clip that we're about to play has.
Okay.
He's trying to disassociate the standard of morality with the character of God. He wants to know if God is subject to these standards. And what I say is that God is subject to his character. But perhaps we can play that quote and listen to that fellow and give him an answer.
Here's the question that he asked. Let's check this out, and then we'll come back and talk about is there objective morality or just a larger picture subjective morality. Watch this.
Is God bound to anything or bound by anything? Is there an absolute morality that God is incapable of breaking?
Now, that video was produced by someone on YouTube called Non-Stamp Collector. That's just a very, very interesting name. It comes from the idea that I've seen in other atheist websites and videos that people accuse atheism of being a religion. They claim it isn't a religion in the same way that non-stamp collecting is not a hobby.
Yeah. Except they go around telling people, don't collect stamps, don't collect stamps.
That's right.
Yeah, they have conventions in places like Copenhagen, and they come up with manifestos on morality.
Wow.
Yes.
So, non-stamp collector, we disagree. You do have a non-stamp collecting religion.
Yes. Methinks they protest too much. But the question that's being asked there is really to do with this question of morality and whether God is justified in certain actions. And he gave us an example, places in the Bible where I suppose he'd be thinking about where Elisha sets the wild bears on people.
A she-bear.
Yeah, and saying that's just about the most vicious and cruel way of being killed. What's God doing in that particular situation? And is God actually submitting to his own level of morality?
Saying that, okay, if God did it there, then what's wrong with the Romans loosing wild animals on the Christians? That's not immoral because God did it. Therefore, it is morally okay. And we were talking about this the other day, and really, you brought up a point, Si, that said, you know, if that person's daughter had been raped and murdered, would they think that that was an okay way for the murderer or for the one who did those acts to die? Nothing would be too bad. Would releasing wild animals on Hitler, if we were able to do that, would that be too bad for Hitler? And really, I know we want to bring out a couple points here, but really, one of the things we do in this, we are underestimating our sin before a holy and righteous God. All of us, we deserve way worse than being ripped apart by wild animals. We deserve hell. Yes. That's how bad it is. That's how bad our sins are before Almighty God. So I see what he's saying here, but you wanted to bring up another point about this.
Well, people are confusing the action with the justice of God. Now, God, of course, is just in doing whatever he chooses to do, but what God chooses to do is within his character, and God is bound by his moral character. And we discussed this on the third debate with Paul, that stealing is not wrong because your neighbors get mad or because you deprive them of property. Stealing is wrong because God is not a thief and we're created in his image. So it's not some arbitrary command that makes stealing wrong, that makes sin wrong. These things are wrong because they're based on the unchanging character of God.
Now that's something that Justin kept bringing up. He was saying, well, hold on. Is it God's character that makes it wrong, or is it whatever God decides is wrong?
Right, and I tried to stress to him that these things are inseparable. It's just like saying, is wetness subject to water, or is water subject to wetness? They're inseparable. God is moral. God is logical. And in that discussion, there's a fellow named Chris Bolt of ChoosingHats.com, and he took apart this conversation in 6 parts, and he did a podcast about it. And he's a lot smarter than I am, so he can explain the issues that Justin was having and explain the points that I was trying to make better than I do. And the beautiful thing about this is that exchange that you and I had on Paul Baird's podcast. Chris Bolt is doing the same thing right now.
I'm loving it. He's gone through 2 parts so far, so if you want to check out his podcast, 6 episodes on the talk you had with Justin, and 2 so far on the round 4, I guess you could call it, of that unbelievable debate where we talked to
I love it because Chris Bolt is making us sound smart.
I know, I remember listening to the first part, and he goes, what Eric just did here was reducto ad absurdum.
That's right.
I paused,
That's
and I went,
exactly what you were thinking.
What did I do? But basically, he was saying, hey, that's the technical term for reducing that argument to absurdity. And really, that's exactly
Which, of course,
what
is Proverbs 26, verse 5.
Yeah, answering the fool according to his folly, so that he's not wise in his own eyes, showing him how foolish he is, exposing that foolishness, which is what we want to do with Penn, Jillette, and we don't mind doing that with Mr. Non-Stamp Collector either, do we? Okay, so is there an objective morality? Answer that question. Here's this question. Is God bound by anything, and is there an absolute morality?
Absolutely.
Of course there is. Even in his video, if you watch it in its entirety, he's assuming that ripping people apart by wild animals is wrong.
So he's making a value judgment based on his presupposition at that
Yes.
point. And that's quite important, isn't it, with the episode that I mentioned with Elisha, because at first sight, one of the accusations thrown is, well, Elisha set the bears on them, or called down this punishment from God because they shouted baldy at him.
And I think that's just.
But of course, what they were actually doing, because of the particular status that Elisha had at that time, what was known is that they were really mocking God. And it's very clear when you read the context that that's what it is. It's an actual attack on God that was being dealt with, not an attack on the person of Elisha and his particular physical appearance, but it was an actual mockery of God and his word.
One thing I stress with unbelievers too, if you think that was bad, stick around.
Yes. Wow.
See, this is an indication of God's wrath towards those who reject him. So, I mean, this is an indication that people should be afraid of what's to come.
Wow. So is there an objective morality? Of course there is an objective morality, and we are going to be judged by God's objective moral standards, the 10 Commandments. If you've never seen how you're going to do on that quiz, go to creationtoday.org and check out Are You a Good Person? I'd encourage you to do that. Well, that is our show today. I want to thank Cy for joining us again, coming down to Pensacola and joining us. If you have questions, you can send them in to questions@creationtoday.org. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter @CreationToday, and Facebook, facebook.com/CreationToday.
Well, do remember, please, to tune into each episode, get them podcasted on iTunes or wherever you get hold of them. They're archived online at creationtoday.org. Well, this has been a production of GodQuest Ministries.
Thank you so much for joining us, Cy. I hope they enjoyed checking out your website, proofthatgodexists.org. And of course, there's some great resources available at thecreationstore.org. God bless.